So today everyone, my name is Jessica and I'm going to be making a chorizo pasta bake. The thing I love about this dish is that it's very cheap. I believe this dish cost me probably under €7. Now, if you wanted, you could feed 2 people. I would normally use a dish like this. However, today, because we have a full house, we're going to be using this dish and it's going to feed roughly between 4 and 6 people depending on the person and the portion control. Okay, so now we're going to put the pasta on. So I have my little measuring cup and I find this really helpful because I never know how much to do, if it's too much or not enough. So I normally put about 1 of these per person. So since we're going to be cooking for 4 to 6 people, I reckon let's go with the 6, and you know, if there's some left over, we'll then do something for the next day. So what you want to do is literally just fill up your cup, all 6, and we're going to pop them in. Now, I normally cook the pasta for about 12 minutes. Now, so once you have all your 6 there, you need to take your boiling water. Now, you can do it from cold, however, the objective of my dish is speed, because when you come home from work, you don't want to be spending all night cooking dishes and running around the place. So I always boil the kettle first. Now, my rule is to really just over the pasta line. So you really need to just put the water straight in. Until it's just covering the pasta. Now, pasta doubles in size and the water will reduce. So if you have to keep stirring it. You have to absolutely keep stirring it. So we're going to pop it on the heat. So at this point, while the pasta's on, we've stirred it, it's not stuck to the pot, we really need to start thinking about turning on our oven, as the oven has to heat up before you can put a pasta bake into it. So on my oven, I normally put it to about 180 degrees, and then I stick it on for at least a good 12-15 minutes, which matches up with the pasta just as a preheat time, so that it's really hot when we put when we really put the dish in, and this will really help the cheese to bake and bubble and not just melt. So what we're going to do now is we need to think about chopping up our chorizo. So this normally comes in almost a walking stick shape. So normally what I do is I cut this part off so that I can just chop it like this. It just makes it easier. So normally with this, I would recommend a really smooth blade. Chorizo is quite hard to cut, and if you use a serrated edge, it'll just crumble underneath it. So you really need to use a sharp blade. So normally it comes with this. Don't mind that. Just literally slice it off, nice clean cut, and put it to the side. Now what you want to do is you want to take off the edge, and this is just, especially I found when I was a beginner, it really helps you in cutting it because you don't have to make the awkward bend with the knife. Now, portions. It really depends on how much you love your chorizo. So I know I'm quite fond of it, so I really want to probably use about 3/4 of this on every bite. So literally just cut it into little 4s like this, in a cross motion. So at this point you want to go back and make sure that your pasta is not sticking to the bottom and it's not boiling over. Okay, so that's doing fine. What we're going to do now is, I can see the pasta is coming to almost a point where it's about done. If you notice, the water has reduced and we can now see that the pasta is visible above the water line, so it's going good. And we just want to turn it down. Probably I started it at a temperature of 6, so I'm going to just turn it down to 4 just to let it sit there a bit longer while we cook off our chorizo. So what I have here, I have my griddle pan, so I'll normally cook it in this. So I'm just going to pop on the heat. Now, like mince, chorizo is quite fatty in itself, so you don't need an awful lot of oil in the pan. It tends to cook in its own juices. So really what you want to do is, I tend to literally just pour a tiny bit in the middle and let it run the course of the pan. So just a tiny dollop. So now that we just have to wait for the pan to heat up a little bit. Chorizo can be eaten raw, so it really doesn't need too much time to cook. It depends on how crispy you like it. So just take it up. Pour it straight in the middle. I just normally use a spatula, Spread it out, make sure each bit has its own little place. And you'll almost hear it start to sizzle instantaneously. So we'll just let them brown on all the sides. Remember again that the chorizo is going into the oven, so it will cook in there as well. So at this point you just want to make sure that your pasta is doing okay. So give it another little stir. So I think that pasta is about done, and it's done to my liking. Now if you want it softer you can, but the best way to check would be to take a fork, pop it in, take out a piece of pasta and literally just pinch it. If you find it's quite soft, then it's done. If you prefer to cook for longer, then go ahead, that's not a problem either. But as you can see, almost all the water is gone, so I think we're good to go here. I'm just going to take it off the heat and turn off the hob. So we're just going to literally give the chorizo a stir around. Chorizo can be quite fatty, so just watch out for splashes. As you notice, the chorizo has gone to almost just a slightly more brown colour, and that means that it's perfectly cooked. So I'm going to turn off the hobs. And then what we want to do is, just because they'll keep cooking because the oil is hot, I tend to just scoop them to the side so that they just stop cooking while we prepare the pasta for the oven. And then literally just pop it over to the side. Okay. So at this point we're going to drain the pasta. So I'm just going to move over to the sink now. So just be careful of steam. Always stand back a little bit and have your hand tilted so that you don't catch your hand in the steam, as you can see there. Give it a little shake because some of the water, because this is penne, some of the water tends to stay in the tunnel of the pasta. So just give it a good shake. Come back over into the pot. This way it's drained and we can work the sauce. I have two sauces here. I'm only going to use one, and you only do need one jar. However, I just wanted to show you. This is an original pasta sauce and it doesn't really have any extra ingredients in it. Now I know that there's some people out there that like to flavour their own food, so if you want to add garlic and onions and things, that's perfectly acceptable and fine. However, as I said, I'm just back from work, I'm tired and I don't have the time to add ingredients. So I'm going to go for pasta sauce with extra onion and garlic. But of course you do have the option. So this can go in cold because obviously we're going to bake it in the oven, it will heat up, it's not a problem. So this is the good and messy bit. You just literally pour the sauce in. When you're finished pouring out the sauce, what I normally do, and this was a tip from my mum, if you fill the water just to here, just normal tap water from the sink, so just from the tap, and literally just a tiny bit of water, literally just up to the label. And what we want to do is close it really tight as to not absolutely destroy your kitchen, and then give it a bit of a shake. What this does is, for one, it helps clean the glass for the recycling aspect, and for two, it thins out the sauce just a little bit. So just pour it right in top, and the tap water does absolutely nothing to the dish, so don't be worried. Yeah, it's good for my recycling bin. So now what we want to do is, we want to take our wooden spoon, and we literally, very slowly, because you don't want to lose any of it over the side of the pot, so we just want to mix it all in perfectly. So once we've done this bit, we take our chorizo, and it's literally just a pile on. We literally just keep piling the food into the pot. So literally just toss it in. Now, when I started this dish, I used to show this down the sink, but don't, because it really, really adds to the flavour. So throw in the oil, because that is all chorizo oil. Remember, we didn't put too much oil in the start, so you know most of this is lovely, gorgeous chorizo flavour, which really adds to the pasta sauce. So what we want to do is mix in the chorizo. All mixed in. everything's prepared and cooked to the way you like it, it has to go into our baking dish. So literally just make sure all the bottom is covered. Yeah, and as you can tell, the pasta has definitely doubled in size because it's completely, perfectly fitting our baking tray, yet we only used 6 tiny cups. So it is perfectly fine. So if you feel like you're not using enough because of the size of the cup, believe me, and you have it there for yourself, it does double. Yeah, so literally just pop it down. This is the great bit. This is the bit where we get our cheese. Now I bought this for €2 and I got a whole block, and I've made this, already this week, and I still have half the block left. Now it really depends, I suppose, on your dietary needs and how hungry you are, or if you have teenage boys at home, but I find that this amount of cheese really is perfectly acceptable. So what we want to do is we want to just take our grater. Cheese, I find these brilliant because they catch the cheese, so you don't be left with a big tower when you take up the grater. Going to melt in the oven anyway. Now we can open it up and we just take it over to our pasta baked, and then what we want to do is we literally just want to make sure that the entire top layer is covered. And the difference between just leaving it on the dish, some people, if it's a quick fix, of course, absolutely, you don't have to actually bake it. Everything is cooked to perfection now, so you can eat it now. So if you're in a rush and you have to run, no problem. Sprinkle the cheese over it. But I would recommend baking it because cheese does melt differently in the oven. You get this really nice puffy texture, and it's quite, almost just stretchy, and it's just lovely. So make sure everything's covered. Now, so I think that's as much as my calories will allow me for this week. So then when it's done, you have your pasta bake, and you literally only need to always remember when popping your dish into the oven that the oven has spent 15 minutes heating up, so do be quick when you try and put your dish in because you don't want to lose all that good heat. So it's roughly been about 10 to 12 minutes, so I think we're about done. So what you want to do is make sure not to burn your hands. So that to me looks pretty done. Now that it's done, you literally just have to portion it. Now obviously depending on how hungry you are and who you have over for dinner, but this is to me more than enough for one person. So just pop it on the plate. Make sure you get those lovely little bits of chorizo. And there you have it. It's a pasta bake.